high-performance aircraft and helicopters, being everywhere from sea level to 61,000 feet at Mach 2. And that some of the things I think that we see because of the nature of aircraft nowadays and because of the nature of the engines, some of the contrails look very odd. And you will see these donuts on a rope type things. And while I'm a guy who chases after black aircraft, I have seen the donuts on the rope form in the contrails in a 767 or a KC-135 tanker that I was right behind. I have seen, you also have in Clifford's pictures, there are aircraft that have the appearance of a sheet of vapor coming off their wings. And that happens at certain altitudes, at certain pressures, at certain angles of attack. And once in a while, the entire aircraft will be enveloped as it's flying along in this sheet of vapor. There are also particulates, which Clifford very well explained how clouds and contrails, how they form and all that. A lot of older aircraft put out a lot of nitrous oxides and carbon and soot, so they also give stuff for water to form in and around. And some military aircraft watch themselves for whether or not they are forming contrails because it gives you away in the sky. Like if you're a stealth airplane, like the B-2, they have a little LiDAR in the back of the tail of that thing. It's looking for the contrails so they can find a place where they don't make contrails. And the military even went so far as to go to find stuff that would actively reduce contrails. That doesn't say that what he says isn't happening, but I certainly have seen things in the air that would tell me that some of the things that people attribute to chemtrails is not it. And I'll give you one good one here, and then I'll shut up and you guys can ask me a question if you want. A couple of years ago, I'm in a KC-135 aerial tanker. This is the aircraft that the Air Force uses with a boom to refuel other aircraft. I worked with the navigator and went with the cloud cover, and I lived in Juneau at that time, the capital of Alaska. And we happened to notice there was a great big, nice, clear hole there. So I brought the aircraft over the top of Juneau and got all sorts of chemtrail reports. And what it was, we were dragging 6 of the USF, the Air Force's Thunderbirds behind us, and I had them turn on their smoke generators when we were up at about 30,000 feet. So immediately this one great big aircraft flying with 6 streaks across the sky, I mean, I could certainly understand why people would interpret that as being something very weird. And the other one that I see that in your pictures, Clifford, you have some pictures of Iraq, and you have these racetrack shapes. Those racetrack shapes are the clear patterns of tanker and AWACS and communication aircraft that fly what are called racetracks there.
All right, you want to react to any of that, Cliff?
I appreciate the information that's given. I actually have no contest or disagreement with any of the information that has been provided. Life is full of exceptions, and there are circumstances which can be used to attempt to explain the vast body. I'm talking about a body of evidence, and that's the difference here. I'm not talking about exceptions. Life is full of exceptions, and we can go through those individual exceptions, and we can find certain cases where certain events can occur. They do not, from my perspective, in any way accommodate for the massive body of information and evidence which has been accumulated over many years. As an example, if you will go to the EPA, actually the EPA and the Air Force, they issued a joint statement. They call it a fact statement. And it's supposed to set the record straight for the public as to, what contrails are about. And you have about 4 interagencies, and they all put out a one-page statement. And you will see a classic statement used, a classic phrase in any of these so-called authoritative statements. And they will say, contrails can persist for long periods of time if the humidity conditions are just right. But not in one of these documents that I've ever seen do they ever state exactly what those conditions are. I've studied those conditions, and I can identify, I think, with a high degree of certainty what those conditions are. And they are the extreme exceptions to the rule, and they do not fit They do not fit the meteorological database, which I have certainly dug into myself. And in this particular case of, the unusual photographs that have been taken recently, demonstrating some very asymmetrical behavior in the formation development of that trail under low humidity conditions, that was not an exotic aircraft by any means, and I'm not going to go into the specific of the tanker or the AWAC and this type of thing, but that was one of many very similar aircraft which quite often will have the appearance of commercial aircraft. I'm not going to say they are commercial, but they certainly have the appearance. The wing-to-wing phenomenon is not an extreme anomaly. It was a short period in the early phase of the operation where it appeared as though a method was being used, which was subsequently altered upon presentation of numerous photographs. I'm familiar with the theories and ideas that say that this is a vortex condition, this type of thing. I've studied them. All I can say is the exceptions do not fit the massive body of data and evidence which has accumulated.
I got to congratulate you, Cliff, on the work you've done on this subject matter. I mean, extremely well done and thought out.
Thank you very much, George. I appreciate that very much.
We will take another quick call before we take our break, and then we'll come back with final calls. Hi there. You're on the air with us.
Hi, George, and hi, Cliff.
Hi.
I will say, too, thank you for the wonderful explanation. My Uncle Albert told us that those chemtrails were the airplanes emptying out their toilets before they landed. I thought it was good to hear
Maybe in the beginning.
Reason I wanted to ask is, would a ionizer in the home help with the air, help us to breathe or help with the quality of the air?
Well, that's an interesting question, Cliff.
Yeah, I've actually done quite a bit of work with that because if you look at my work there, you're going to find several papers related to measurement of ion counts in the atmosphere. That's not a real easy thing to do, and that equipment is not very affordable in most cases. I was able to find my way into finally getting an instrument. But I measured the ion counts and have some absolute values there. And the data shows an extreme imbalance, very unexpected numbers, very high towards the positive side. Life is not supposed to be full of negative ions or positive. It's a balance of both. That ratio is roughly in the order of 5 to 4, somewhere in there, slightly towards the positive side. The data shows an extreme skew towards the positive side, and I've done some experimentation with electrostatic filters. I would say in general that if you can create an environment that mimics that more balanced ratio in nature, that I think you will find your environment also to be improved. So,
stay with us, Cliff. We're going to be back with you in just a moment on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast to Coast. I'm George Noory with our guest, Clifford Carnicom. Clifford, what do you do next? You continue the research? You don't give up, do you?
No, my work does carry on, although at, let's say, a more completed state. In other words, I have done the majority of what I am able to offer as an individual with my resources that I have. This issue doesn't reside with me. This issue resides with the inhabitants of this planet. My role has been primarily as a researcher to offer information and evidence of a intentional and deliberate change in our environment without our consent. So if there is an issue that I think that I can contribute further knowledge to with my resources, and if I have the time available, which is not the same anymore, I will do what I can always. But this issue is not my issue. This is our issue. This is our air.
All right, back to the phones we go. Wild Card Line, you're up with us. Hello there.
Yes, hi, thank you. This is Rick from Miami, and it's an honor to speak with Cliff. The power of intention. Today I was looking up at the sky and saw these chemtrails in the sky, and I remember George mentioning that there was going to be a program on chemtrails, and I was really hoping to get to tell them about Cliff Carnicom and the barium that he's found, and sure enough, Cliff, you're on the program tonight, and I am more than enthusiastic about it, but not about what you bring to the table, of course. My main comment is I'm a college student, and I looked at all the research that he's presented, and I'm wondering what methods we can use to awaken people, because like he said, it's more than just this issue. It's a general sense of people being asleep. And the other thing I wanted to mention is he got me thinking when he mentioned the Manhattan Project about time and whatnot, and I wondered how the Philadelphia experiment plays in this and the Montauk Project.
Both good questions. Thanks. I'll let you listen on your radio.